Tonight we settle in with the long history of chess. This is not just a game of kings and queens, or a contest played out on black and white squares. Chess is a quiet companion that has moved through centuries alongside people everywhere. It belongs to the wider story of human history, reaching from ancient India and Persia, through the courts and coffeehouses of Europe, into the present day. The earliest roots stretch back before the year 600, in lands where the game had no name and its shapes were only just forming. From there, chess traveled slowly, carried by traders, scholars, and travelers. It changed as it moved, picking up new names and new rules, always shaped by the lives around it. This history unfolds across many places and times. We begin with the oldest traces in India, then follow the game through Persia, across the Islamic world, and into medieval Europe. We see how chess settled into new homes, how it grew in the light of the Renaissance, and how it found a place in crowded coffeehouses and quiet libraries. The story moves on through the rise of clubs and tournaments, the coming of clocks and printed books, and the steady march toward the modern game. In the last century, chess meets new pressures. Machines and computers change the way people play and think about the game. Today, chess lives both on wooden boards and glowing screens, always familiar but never quite the same. Throughout its long life, chess has carried a steady pressure, the weight of time and waiting. Games unfold slowly, shaped by silence, patience, and the careful limits of the board. The game asks for endurance, not speed. That same calm, even pace will hold here. There will be no sudden changes in sound or image. Let yourself settle in. The world of chess is wide and quiet, and there is no need to hurry. Long before the game of chess had a name, the ancient world was already alive with the stirrings of strategic play and symbolic representations of conflict. Across the great civilizations of early South Asia, Mesopotamia, Egypt, and China, the urge to model, understand, and even ritualize conflict found its place not only in the theater of war, but on the surface of boards and in the movement of tokens. By the centuries before 600 CE, the foundations for the emergence of abstract strategy games had been laid, shaped by centuries of social, intellectual, and material development. The earliest echoes of board games in human history can be traced to the river valleys and cities of ancient China. Here, more than 2,500 years ago, the game of Go, known as Weiqi in Chinese, was already in play. Go stands as the oldest board game continuously played to the present day, its lineage confirmed by archaeological and textual evidence. The earliest written reference to Go appears in the Zhuozhuan, a chronicle completed in the 4th century BCE. This text records a Go game as part of a historical event in 5048 BCE, establishing the game's presence in the lives of early Chinese elites. Go would soon become recognized as one of the 4 essential arts of cultured aristocratic Chinese scholars, sharing this status with music, calligraphy, and painting. It was more than a pastime, it was a pursuit that signified refinement, intellect, and social status. Within the ancient world of China, Go was not the only game to capture attention. Liubo, an ancient race game, is also mentioned in historical sources. By the 5th century, Liubo was already being described as obsolete, but its prior existence is attested by finds of boards and pieces. The Liubo board, square in shape, was marked with distinctive T and L-shaped markings. While the exact rules of Liubo remain uncertain, its design and archaeological remains suggest a game that involved both chance and strategy. Liubo's disappearance by the 5th century illustrates the shifting landscape of games and the evolving preferences of ancient societies. Beyond China, other forms of board games and proto-board games appeared in the archaeological and textual records of the ancient world. In some regions, the game known as Mancala dates back to the 6th century. Mancala's boards are characterized by rows of holes, filled with stones or seeds, and the game's play revolves around moving these pieces in patterns that require both calculation and foresight. The simplicity of its materials and the abstraction of its movement patterns made Mancala adaptable and portable, spreading across regions and societies. In the Roman world, a game known as La Trunculi took shape as a contest of military tactics. La Trunculi, sometimes likened to chess or drafts, was played on a grid with pieces representing soldiers. The game's objective and movement rules were rooted in the simulation of battlefield maneuvers, and its presence in Roman society is confirmed by both literary references and archaeological discoveries of boards and tokens. The popularity of La Trunculi among Roman soldiers and civilians alike points to a widespread fascination with the representation of conflict and the mastery of strategic thought. Across these ancient cultures, the presence of board games and symbolic representations of warfare is well attested. Archaeological finds boards, pieces and inscriptions have been discovered in tombs, homes, and public spaces. These artifacts suggest that the urge to abstract the complexities of conflict and strategy was not confined to a single society, but emerged wherever people gathered, competed, and reflected on the nature of power and skill. Yet, in many cases, the names of the individuals or groups responsible for the creation or popularization of these early games remain lost to time. The games themselves are the surviving witnesses, silent but eloquent, to the intellectual currents of their age. The perception and use of these games within their societies varied. In China, Go was not merely a diversion, but a symbol of scholarly accomplishment. Its inclusion among the 4 arts of the aristocracy underscores its role as a marker of social status and intellectual cultivation. Contemporaneous sources, such as the Zhuozhuan, do not elaborate on the precise rules or strategies employed, but their references to gameplay in the context of historical events hint at the game's significance as a metaphor for diplomacy, rivalry, and subtle maneuvering. In the Roman world, La Trunculi was associated with military discipline and the training of strategic faculties, though no surviving contemporaneous quotations directly describe the purpose or meaning of the game. The absence of formal detailed rules from this period is notable. While boards and pieces survive, the exact manner in which these games were played is often a matter of scholarly reconstruction rather than direct documentation. In summary, the existence of early board games and symbolic warfare in ancient societies before 600 CE is established through a patchwork of archaeological evidence, scattered textual references, and the continued presence of certain games into later eras. The cultural context in which these games were played reflects the values and preoccupations of their societies: status, intellect, discipline, and the ever-present specter of conflict. Turning to early South Asia, the intellectual and social environment preceding chess was deeply shaped by prevailing military doctrines and philosophies. In the literature and traditions of the region, strategic thinking and planning were woven into the fabric of both society and myth. The Mahabharata, one of the great Sanskrit epics, offers a glimpse into the worldview of ancient India. Within its verses, the term Chaturanga appears, denoting a battle formation composed of 4 divisions: infantry, cavalry, elephantry, and chariotry. This 4-fold division was more than a military schema. It was a lens through which the complexities of war and power were understood. During the Gupta period, spanning approximately 319 to 543 CE in the northern Indian subcontinent, the organization of armies and the art of war were central concerns of rulers and their courts. The 4 divisions of the army were not only practical categories, but also symbols of order, hierarchy, and strategic possibility. Epics and treatises from the period reflect an ongoing engagement with questions of leadership, formation, and tactical innovation. The association of military prowess with royal legitimacy further elevated the status of strategic thought. Within this context, the connection between social structure and strategic activity is evident. The promotion of military and strategic knowledge was often the domain of courtly circles, where nobles, generals, and advisors debated the merits of different formations and plans. There are references to traditional games in the region that symbolically represented war strategy, with pieces representing figures such as ministers, chariots, and elephants. These games, while not described in detail in surviving sources, suggest a continuity between the abstractions of the battlefield and the abstractions of play. Recorded observations from ancient South Asia emphasize the value placed on hierarchy, discipline, and planning. The literature of the period often discusses the importance of wise counsel, prudent alliance, and the anticipation of an opponent's moves. While explicit contemporaneous quotations on the use of games for military training are scarce, the pervasive presence of strategic thinking in both epic and practical texts testifies to its cultural importance. Participation in strategic activities, whether in the form of games or real-world planning, was closely associated with social status, with the highest echelons of society responsible for both the theory and practice of war. No direct evidence survives from this period of formalized rules or detailed gameplay for war-themed board games in South Asia. Instead, what remains are the echoes of strategic thought, the outlines of social structures that valued planning and foresight, and the symbolic representations of conflict that would in time find expression in more formalized games. The emergence of abstract strategy games in the ancient world was not a simple or isolated development. It was the result of a confluence of technological, economic, and social changes that made such games both possible and desirable. The Silk Roads, the great arteries of trade and cultural exchange, facilitated the movement of people, goods, and ideas across the breadth of Eurasia. Merchants, artisans, envoys, and ambassadors traversed these routes, carrying with them not only merchandise, but also recreational pursuits, including games that reflected the intellectual and social preoccupations of their home regions. Cross-cultural interactions along the Silk Roads enabled the sharing and adaptation of gaming ideas between civilizations. A game invented in one region could, through contact and exchange, find new forms and meanings in another. The movement of Go, from its legendary origins in the court of Emperor Yao, around 230–37 to 230–58 BCE, to the refined circles of Chinese aristocracy, illustrates the capacity of games to transcend their original contexts and become part of a shared cultural heritage. Theories regarding the origins of Go suggest that it may have developed from practices in which tribal warlords and generals used stones to map attacking positions, blending the practical with the abstract, and the martial with the contemplative. Technological developments, such as the ability to create boards and pieces from durable materials, supported the spread and persistence of abstract games. Economic prosperity in certain periods allowed for the leisure necessary to cultivate such pursuits, while social developments, such as the rise of an educated and leisured aristocracy, created demand for activities that signified both status and intellect. In ancient China, the 17x17 line grid of the earliest Go boards reflects both an attention to mathematical elegance and a capacity for abstraction that was valued by the elite. Philosophical and religious concepts also played a role in encouraging abstraction and symbolic representation. In societies where the cosmos was seen as a pattern to be deciphered, and where the actions of rulers and generals were believed to echo the movements of the heavens, the creation of games that modeled conflict and order was a natural extension of broader intellectual currents. The traditions of scholarship and debate in ancient China, and the emphasis on strategic counsel and foresight in South Asia, both contributed to an environment in which the invention of new games was possible. Leisure, education, and ritual practices all intersected with the development of abstract strategy games. In many cases, the act of playing a game was not merely a pastime, but a form of self-cultivation or social demonstration. The inclusion of Go among the four arts of the Chinese aristocracy is a clear example. Mastery of the game was seen as evidence of refined intellect and character. In other contexts, games may have served as tools for education, training the minds of the young and the powerful alike in the arts of calculation, patience, and foresight. Contemporaneous accounts that discuss the value or novelty of abstract strategy games are rare, but the continued presence of these games in elite circles and their association with important social and intellectual roles speak to their perceived importance. Institutional or societal support for game invention or play is most clearly documented in ancient China, where the aristocracy's embrace of Go ensured its survival and development. By the close of the period before 600 CE, the enabling conditions for the emergence of abstract strategy games had been firmly established in the ancient world. The interplay of technological innovation, social structure, cross-cultural exchange, and intellectual curiosity created an environment in which the abstraction of conflict and the modeling of strategy could flourish. While the game of chess had not yet taken form, the world was already rich with the materials, ideas, and practices that would, in time, give rise to one of humanity's most enduring and celebrated games. The emergence of Chaturanga in India during the period between 600 and 700 marks a significant chapter in the history of games and strategic thought. Chaturanga is widely regarded as the earliest known ancestor of chess, and its presence in Indian society during this era is supported by both literary references and the persistence of its terminology in the language and symbolism of the time. The structure of Chaturanga, its military symbolism, and the context in which it flourished all reflect the layered complexity of Indian society in the early medieval period. Chaturanga was played on a square board known as the Ashtapada, which consisted of 64 squares arranged in an 8x8 grid. Unlike later chessboards, the Ashtapada was uncheckered, presenting a uniform field for the movement of the pieces. The game's pieces embodied the four principal divisions of the Indian army: elephants, cavalry, chariots, and infantry. In Sanskrit, Chaturanga literally means four limbs or four parts, a direct allusion to these military divisions. This reflection of the battlefield in the structure of the game is one of the most distinctive features of Chaturanga, as it was played in India during this period. The precise rules by which Chaturanga was played in the 600-700 interval are not preserved in surviving texts. Chess historians have often speculated that its rules bore some similarity to those of its later successor, Shatranj, but the evidence from within this period is fragmentary. Despite the lack of a full rule set, the basic organization of the game is clear from the surviving descriptions. Each player commanded a force that included representations of elephants, horses, chariots, and foot soldiers, arranged on the Ashtapada in a manner reminiscent of the deployment of an army before battle. The king, or Raja, was also present, serving as the central figure whose fate determined the outcome of the struggle. Contemporaneous descriptions or illustrations of Chaturanga sets from this period are rare. However, the Indian literary tradition provides some evidence for the game's existence and structure. One of the earliest references to an Indian board game appears in Subandhu's Vasavadatta, a Sanskrit romance composed around AD 450, just prior to the window of this chapter. In this work, Subandhu describes a game played with frogs, as pieces on squares described as black fields. Although this passage is somewhat poetic, and its exact identification with Chaturanga is debated, it indicates an awareness of board games involving pieces and squares in Indian society before the 7th century. By the early 7th century, references to a chess-like game appear in Indian writings, suggesting that Chaturanga, or a closely related form, was already well established. No individual from the period between 600 and 700 is credited with codifying the complete rules of Chaturanga, nor is there a single text from this window that systematically sets out its regulations. Instead, the understanding of Chaturanga's structure relies on scattered references and the persistence of its terminology in Indian literature. The symbolic association of the pieces with the four arms of the army is well attested, and this symbolism was likely understood by those who played and discussed the game. The arrangement of the pieces on the board, echoing the formations of real armies, reinforced the game's connection to the art of war. Recorded observations of how Chaturanga was explained or taught in Indian society during this period are not preserved in detail. The absence of instructional texts or treatises from this time means that the transmission of the game's knowledge likely occurred through oral tradition or informal demonstration. Likewise, there are no contemporaneous quotations from the 600-700 period that directly discuss the game's symbolism or purpose. The association of Chaturanga with military organization and strategy, however, is implicit in the structure of the game and the meaning of its name. As for regional variations, there is no documented evidence from the 600-700 period of distinct forms of Chaturanga existing in different parts of India. The references that do survive point to a broadly recognized set of components and symbolism centered on the fourfold army and the Ashtapadhar board. The lack of evidence for regional variation may reflect either the uniformity of the game at this stage or the limitations of the surviving sources. By the end of this period, the documented structure and symbolic framework of Chaturanga in early India are established through the references to its military organization, the use of the Ashtapadhar board, and the association of its pieces with the principal arms of the Indian army. Chaturanga's place in Indian society during the 7th century can be glimpsed through the lens of its documented presence in the social and intellectual life of the time. The game was flourishing in northwestern India by the 7th century, and its origins are traced to the Gupta period around the 6th century AD. The use of the term Chaturanga in Indian literature and its connection to the fourfold army situates the game firmly within the context of Indian political and military thought. References to Chaturanga appear in the Indian epic Mahabharata, where the word is used to describe a battle formation. While the Mahabharata itself is a much older text, the resonance of its terminology in the context of the game indicates the depth of Chaturanga's connection to Indian ideas of warfare and statecraft. By the early 7th century, the earliest written mention of a chess-like game appears, suggesting that Chaturanga was already well known and widely played. The game's flourishing in northwestern India during this time further supports its integration into the social fabric. The social settings in which Chaturanga was played are not described in detail in surviving records from this period. However, the association of the game with military symbolism and its connection to the terminology of the court and the battlefield suggests that it was known among the educated and ruling classes. There is no direct evidence from 600-700 of Chaturanga being played in royal courts, educational institutions, or religious contexts, but the game's military connotations and its presence in literature imply that it was valued as a pursuit suitable for those interested in strategy and governance. No specific individuals, dynasties, or groups are identified in surviving records from this period as patrons or promoters of Chaturanga. The game's association with the Gupta period and its flourishing in northwestern India suggests that it had a degree of official or elite acceptance, but the absence of explicit references to patronage or organized promotion limits the ability to attribute its spread to particular actors or institutions. Contemporaneous literature, inscriptions, or art from the 600-700 period do not provide detailed depictions of Chaturanga or its players. The references that do exist are primarily linguistic or elusive, indicating the game's presence but not furnishing detailed accounts of its social context. Likewise, there are no recorded observations from this period, describing how the game was perceived in relation to status, learning, or virtue. The symbolic alignment of Chaturanga with the arts of war and governance, however, suggests that it was regarded as a pursuit of some significance, particularly among those concerned with the administration and defense of the realm. No contemporaneous quotations from this period link Chaturanga explicitly to broader cultural or philosophical themes. The absence of such quotations does not preclude the possibility that the game was discussed in these terms, but the surviving sources do not provide direct evidence. Similarly, there are no documented criticisms or controversies regarding Chaturanga from the 600–700 period. The game's flourishing and its presence in the language and literature of the time indicate that it was generally accepted, at least among those who left written records. By the end of this era, the relationship between Chaturanga and Indian society is clarified through its documented associations with military organization, its flourishing in northwestern India, and its presence in the language of the period. The game's status as a reflection of the arts of war and governance is evident in its structure and symbolism, even as the details of its social context remain partially veiled by the limitations of the surviving sources. The early Indian cultural attitudes towards strategy and foresight, as reflected in Chaturanga and related practices, are discernible through the game's structure and the limited references found in Sanskrit writings of the period. Chaturanga is identified in these sources as an ancient Indian strategy board game, emphasizing the importance of planning and tactical thought. Unlike simpler games such as checkers or Go, Chaturanga's pieces possess different powers, requiring players to coordinate the strengths and weaknesses of their army in pursuit of victory. Victory in Chaturanga depended on the fate of one piece, equivalent to the king. This focus on the king as the decisive element of the game mirrored the centrality of the ruler in the political and military life of India. The requirement to protect one's own king while threatening that of the opponent demanded a balance of offense and defense, as well as foresight and the ability to anticipate the moves of an adversary. Sanskrit writings from the 600–700 period mention Chaturanga and describe its rules, though not in comprehensive detail. These references attest to the game's presence in the intellectual life of the time and its recognition as a vehicle for the exercise of strategic thinking. However, there is no direct evidence from this period that Chaturanga was used formally to teach strategy, nor are there treatises from the time that analyze the game's tactics or its application to military or political problems. No specific teachers, writers, or commentators from the 600–700 period are identified as having discussed the strategic aspects of Chaturanga in detail. The surviving references are general in nature, emphasizing the game's status as a test of skill and foresight, rather than offering systematic analysis. Despite this, the association of Chaturanga with the arts of war and leadership is implicit in its structure and in the terminology used to describe it. Recorded observations linking the game to concepts of wisdom, prudence, or leadership do not survive from this era. Similarly, there are no contemporaneous quotations expressing attitudes towards strategy or the intellectual merits of Chaturanga. The absence of such statements limits the ability to reconstruct the full range of cultural attitudes toward the game, but the structure of Chaturanga itself, with its emphasis on planning and the management of diverse forces, reflects a cultural appreciation for strategic thinking. There is no evidence from the 600–700 period of institutional or formal support for the study or teaching of strategy through games, such as Chaturanga. The game's presence in Sanskrit writings and its association with military organization suggest that it was valued as a form of intellectual exercise, but the surviving records do not document formal instruction or organized study of strategy in this context. By the close of this period, the available records establish early Indian cultural attitudes towards strategy and foresight, as reflected in Chaturanga. The game's structure, the diversity of its pieces, and its focus on the protection of the king all point to an appreciation for the complexities of planning and the challenges of command. Though the details of its instructional use and social context remain elusive, Chaturanga stands as a testament to the enduring Indian interest in the arts of war, governance, and strategic thought during the era from 600 to 700. Within the palatial halls and gardens of Sasanian Persia, chess entered a new phase of its history between the years 700 and 900. The game, which had traveled from India, found a new home at the Persian court, where it evolved in both form and meaning. The presence of chess among the Persian elite is attested by several accounts, some of which recall episodes from earlier centuries, yet continued to shape perceptions and practices during this period. The Persian court, with its tradition of intellectual pursuits and ceremonial display, provided fertile ground for chess to be woven into the fabric of aristocratic life. Historical records, though often drawing on earlier events, cast a long shadow over the Persian understanding of chess during these years. The Madhyana Chaturanga, a treatise dating from around 620 AD, describes the celebrated moment when an Indian king sent a chess set of 16 emerald pieces and 16 ruby pieces to the Sasanian ruler Khosrau I. This episode, while rooted in the 6th century, was recounted and referenced in Persian texts produced closer to 700 and later. The narrative, preserved and retold in works like the Chaturanga, highlights the Persian court's engagement with the game and the intellectual challenge it represented. According to these accounts, Khosrau's courtiers were tasked with deciphering the rules of the newly arrived game, demonstrating both the court's appetite for mental exercise and its cosmopolitan reach. By the era spanning 700 to 900, chess, referred to as Chaturanga in Persian, was firmly established within the courtly environment. The Xusra Kawadan Udaridag, a text composed around 700 AD, references the presence of chess during the time of Khosrau I, underscoring the game's continued association with the royal milieu. The Chaturanga, dating to around 800 AD, further describes the introduction and acceptance of Chaturanga into Persian society, drawing a direct line from its legendary arrival to its ongoing role at court. Although these documents often look back to earlier events, their composition and circulation during this period indicate the enduring resonance of chess within the cultural memory of the Persian elite. Within the court, chess was not merely a pastime, but a marker of intellectual distinction. The act of solving the Indian king's challenge, as recounted in Persian sources, became emblematic of the court's prowess in logic and strategic reasoning. Courtiers who demonstrated skill or insight in chess were celebrated for their acumen, and the game itself was woven into the fabric of courtly rituals and entertainments. While the records from 700 to 900 do not enumerate specific individuals who played chess at court during this period, the persistence of the game's presence in literature and official chronicles speaks to its recognized role among Persian royalty and their advisors. No formal organizations or regulatory bodies are documented within the Persian court as overseeing or promoting chess during these years. Instead, the game's status appears to have been sustained through custom and tradition, with its ceremonial and social functions shaped by the practices of the courtly elite. References to chess in administrative records or court chronicles from this era are sparse, yet the literary and didactic texts that mention Chaturanga reflect its integration into the broader culture of the Persian aristocracy. Contemporaneous accounts from this period do not explicitly ascribe specific cultural or political significance to chess, beyond its role as a courtly accomplishment. The game's association with the court, its ceremonial uses, and its function as a test of intellect, however, all point to its value as a symbol of refinement and learning. By the close of the 9th century, chess had become a recognized and respected activity within the Persian court, its presence woven into the rhythms of elite society. As the game took root in Persia, it underwent a transformation not only in its social role, but also in its language and rules. The evolution from the Indian Chaturanga to the Persian Shatranj is marked by the emergence of new terminology and the codification of distinct rules, signaling the beginning of systematic study and analysis. Persian scholars and players contributed to the development of a specialized vocabulary, adapting and renaming the pieces to reflect local linguistic and cultural sensibilities. The Chaturanga Namak, dated to around 800 AD, provides one of the earliest recorded lists of piece names in Persian, reflecting this process of linguistic adaptation. The Sanskrit-derived term Chaturanga became Chaturang in Middle Persian, and subsequently evolved into Shatranj as the language itself changed. The names of the pieces, such as the king, vizier, elephant, horse, rook, and foot soldier, were rendered in Persian, with some modifications to suit the context and conventions of Persian society. This process not only marked the game's integration into Persian culture, but also set the stage for further evolution in later centuries. During this period, Persian players introduced several important rule changes that distinguished Shatranj from its Indian predecessor. Among the most significant was the rule requiring a warning to be given when the king was under attack, a practice that reinforced the game's emphasis on courtesy and clarity. Additionally, Persian rules stipulated that the king could not be moved into check or left in check, a departure from earlier conventions. These changes meant that the direct capture of the king was no longer permitted. Instead, the objective became to deliver checkmate, thereby ending the game without the physical removal of the royal piece. This innovation not only altered the strategic character of Shatranj, but also demonstrated a growing interest in codification and analytical rigor. The period also witnessed the emergence of written analysis and instructional texts on Shatranj. One of the most prominent figures associated with the study of the game during this era was Al-Adli Rumi, who lived from 800 to 870. Al-Adli composed the Kitab ash-Shatranj around 840 AD, a treatise that explored the rules, strategies, and problems of Shatranj. His work stands as one of the earliest known systematic studies of chess, reflecting both the depth of Persian engagement with the game. While Al-Adli's Kitab ash-Shatranj survives only in references and fragments, its influence is attested by later writers and by the continued development of analytical literature. The treatise is said to have addressed not only the rules of play, but also the composition of chess problems and the classification of players according to their skill. Though no other specific instructional manuals or written rules from 700 to 900 are known to survive in full, the existence of Al-Adli's work and references to similar studies indicate a growing culture of chess analysis and debate. The transmission of chess knowledge during this period appears to have relied on both oral and written means. Instruction was likely given in person at court or in scholarly circles, with masters teaching students the intricacies of the game. The creation and discussion of chess problems, or mansubat, became a recognized intellectual activity, providing a forum for the demonstration of wit and strategic insight. Early commentary and problem compositions are attributed to named individuals such as Al-Adli, though the surviving record is fragmentary. Contemporaneous sources from this period do not provide detailed comparisons between Indian chess and Persian Shatranj, but the documented rule changes and evolving terminology make clear that distinctions were recognized and discussed among players and scholars. The process of adaptation and analysis that took place in Persia laid the foundations for the game's further transformation in later centuries. By the end of this period, Persian terminology and analytical traditions had begun to shape the evolving identity of Shatranj, marking a decisive step in the game's journey from an imported curiosity to a fully integrated and studied element of Persian culture. As Shatranj established itself within the Persian court and intellectual life, it also became increasingly associated with education, refinement, and social status. The game's reputation as a test of intelligence and a symbol of cultured accomplishment grew steadily during this era, reflected in both the writings of scholars and the practices of the elite. The role of chess in the upbringing and education of Persian elites during this period is suggested by the prominence of Shatranj among courtly and scholarly circles. While no formal curricula or educational manuals from 700 to 900 explicitly list chess as a subject of instruction, the game's presence in texts and its association with leading intellectuals indicate its value as a mark of learning. The ability to play Shatranj was regarded as evidence of a refined mind, and was often mentioned alongside other accomplishments expected of the well-bred and educated. Literary references to chess as a symbol of intellect, wisdom, or refinement appear in the works of writers and scholars from this period. Al-Adli ar-Rumi, for example, became known at the courts of the caliphs for his expertise in Shatranj, his reputation resting not only on his skill as a player, but also on his contributions to the study and documentation of the game. His association with the court and his standing as an authority on Shatranj reflect the esteem in which chess was held as a marker of intellectual distinction. Other figures, such as Ar-Razi, who died before 900, also authored treatises on Shatranj, further cementing the game's place within the world of scholarship and elite accomplishment. The composition of chess problems, an art form that required both creativity and deep understanding, became a recognized avenue for displays of learning and wit. Gatherings at court or in private salons often featured games of Shatranj, where participants could demonstrate their strategic prowess and engage in contests of intellect. Although no specific educational guides or manuals from this period are known to have survived with references to chess, the indirect evidence provided by treatises and the reputations of leading players suggest that Shatranj was widely regarded as a valuable component of elite culture. The game's association with the courts of the caliphs and the scholarly efforts of writers like Al-Adli and Ar-Razi attest to its role in shaping perceptions of personal and cultural sophistication. No single individual or group is documented as having promoted chess as a mark of status or accomplishment during these years, but the cumulative effect of its presence in courtly, scholarly, and social settings points to its recognized value. Chess became a subtle but powerful means of signaling refinement and intellectual capacity, its mastery reflecting both personal discipline and cultural engagement. Contemporaneous sources do not provide extensive discussion of the role of chess in shaping broader perceptions of sophistication, but the evidence of its integration into the practices and values of the Persian elite is unmistakable. The game's reputation as a pursuit worthy of study, debate, and display elevated it from a mere pastime to a valued component of education and social distinction. By the end of the 9th century, chess had achieved a status in Persian society that reflected both its intellectual appeal and its symbolic resonance. It was recognized not only as a game of strategy, but as a marker of education and elite culture, its mastery conferring distinction and respect. Within the Persian court and beyond, Shatranj stood as a testament to the enduring power of games to shape and reflect the values of a civilization. During the centuries between 700 and 1100, chess flourished and expanded across the Islamic world, finding a vibrant life in its cities, courts, and intellectual circles. The game, already rooted in the region by the turn of the 8th century, became a unifying activity that transcended social and cultural boundaries. Its presence was not merely a reflection of leisure, but a testament to the intellectual currents that shaped the Islamic world during this era. The documented spread of chess through major urban centers, the emergence of written problems and composed positions, and its role as an intellectual pursuit reveal a panorama of preservation, adaptation, and refinement that defined the game's journey in these centuries. In the early 8th century, the cities of the Islamic world were already alive with chess activity. Sayyid bin Jubair, who lived from 665 to 714, is recorded as having played blindfold chess around the year 700, turning his back on the board to demonstrate his skill. His activity is one of the earliest documented instances of chess being played in a sophisticated manner, and it suggests that the game had already found a place among the learned and the accomplished. Around the same time, said bin al-Musayyib of Madinah engaged in public games of chess, openly declaring the game permissible as long as gambling was not involved. This public endorsement from a prominent figure in Medina before 710 indicates that chess was not limited to private circles, but could be found in communal and visible spaces. The first literary reference to chess in Arabic appeared in 720, providing evidence that the game had entered the written record and was recognized in the broader cultural discourse. The presence of chess in the literary domain points to its significance beyond mere pastime. It had become a subject worthy of mention and discussion in the intellectual life of the Islamic world. As the Abbasid era dawned in the 8th century, Baghdad emerged as a prominent center of chess activity. The city's rise as a cultural and intellectual hub coincided with the growing prestige of chess. Caliph Harun al-Rashid, who reigned during part of this period, made chess a mandatory activity at his court. Under his patronage, the game was elevated to a symbol of refinement and intellect. Harun al-Rashid not only encouraged the playing of chess, but actively sought out skilled players, including those with the remarkable ability to play blindfolded. This deliberate cultivation of chess talent, at the highest levels of power in Baghdad, illustrates the esteem in which the game was held. The court of Baghdad was not the only place where chess flourished. Muhammad bin Sirin, another early figure, played chess blindfolded before 728, demonstrating the spread of advanced chess technique across the region. The practice of blindfold chess, which required significant memory and visualization skills, was an indicator of the game's intellectual appeal and the sophistication of its practitioners. Such feats would not have been possible without an environment that valued chess as both a challenge and a demonstration of mental acuity. The documented presence of chess in public and private gatherings, in courts and communal spaces, reflects the game's integration into the social fabric of major Islamic cities. Merchants, scholars, and travelers played vital roles in transmitting chess across regions, carrying the game along trade routes that connected the Islamic world's diverse urban centers. While specific names of merchants or travelers who spread chess are not recorded in the surviving sources for this period, the movement of the game from city to city is evident in the widespread references to its play and acceptance. Literary works, city records, and travel accounts from this era occasionally mention chess, attesting to its recognized status. The fact that chess was discussed by jurists, theologians, and scholars further underscores its significance. The game was not merely a diversion, but had achieved recognition as a legitimate and valued activity within the urban culture of the Islamic world. By the close of the 11th century, chess was firmly established as a widespread and respected pursuit in the major cities of the region. As chess became more deeply embedded in the cultural life of the Islamic world, a new dimension of the game began to emerge: the creation and circulation of written chess problems and composed positions. The development of such compositions marked a significant step in the intellectualization and formalization of chess. Records from the period indicate that by the 10th century, Abbasid chess masters such as al-Ajlaj and al-Suli had achieved fame for their mastery of the game. These individuals, operating within the vibrant intellectual milieu of the Abbasid court, contributed to the development of a written tradition around chess. Al-Adli and as-Suli, both prominent figures in the history of chess, are credited with composing or collecting chess problems that were later referenced in manuscripts compiled in the 12th century. Although the original works of these masters do not survive in their entirety from the period between 700 and 1100, extracts from their writings are preserved in later collections. This preservation is evidence that the culture of written chess problems had already taken root within the Islamic world during the 10th century. The compositions created by these masters were not mere curiosities. They were designed to challenge and educate. The purpose of the written problems was to test the analytical abilities of players, to provide models of clever play, and to serve as exercises in calculation and foresight. The intended audience for these compositions included both students of the game and accomplished players seeking to deepen their understanding. The existence of such problems attests to a culture of study and refinement within the community of chess enthusiasts. The methods and conventions used in the notation and presentation of chess problems during this period reflect the intellectual rigor applied to the game. While the surviving sources do not provide a complete picture of notation practices before the 12th century, the references to detailed literature and the careful collection of problems suggest a systematic approach to recording and transmitting chess knowledge. The Abbasid chess masters, operating after theologians had approved the game, produced works that contributed to the codification of chess strategy and the formalization of its study. Contemporaneous sources discuss the intellectual and educational value of composing and solving chess problems. The creation of such problems was seen as a demonstration of ingenuity, and their solution was regarded as a test of intelligence and skill. The culture of written chess problems contributed to the elevation of chess as a discipline worthy of study and admiration. By the end of the period, composed positions and written challenges had become an established part of chess culture in the Islamic world, providing a foundation for further development in later centuries. The prominence of chess as an intellectual pastime during these centuries was not confined to a single social class or cultural group. Records describe chess being played and studied by individuals from diverse backgrounds within the Islamic world. The game was enjoyed by people from different echelons of society, reflecting its broad appeal and accessibility. This inclusiveness is documented in the practices and expectations of the era's intellectual and administrative leaders. Minister Al-Hasan ibn Sa'al, who served during the Abbasid era, required that writers in his service possess knowledge of chess. This requirement was not merely a matter of recreation, but reflected the value placed on chess as a mark of intellectual competence. The ability to play chess was considered evidence of a sharp mind and an education suited to the administrative and literary responsibilities of the time. Muhammad bin Sirin, known as a jurist, played chess, demonstrating that the game was accepted among scholars and legal authorities. Al-Mawardi, a noted writer, observed that learned companions played chess in the presence of Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab. These references provide direct evidence that chess was integrated into the scholarly and administrative life of the Islamic world, serving as both a pastime and a vehicle for intellectual engagement. Chess also served as a medium for scholarly exchange and cross-cultural interaction. The game's popularity among individuals from various linguistic, religious, and cultural communities facilitated communication and understanding. In salons, debates, and scholarly gatherings, chess was used as a tool for demonstration and discussion, providing a common ground for the exchange of ideas. The perception of chess as a unifying activity is supported by its acceptance across different strata of society, and its recognition as a symbol of intellectual refinement. Literary, philosophical, and scientific works from the period occasionally address the intellectual merits of chess. The game was praised for its ability to hone reasoning, develop strategic thinking, and cultivate patience. These qualities were valued in the broader context of intellectual life and contributed to the game's esteemed status. Chess's role as a respected intellectual pursuit is further demonstrated by the attention it received from the leading figures of the time. The promotion of chess by ministers, scholars, and caliphs helped to establish its place in the cultural and intellectual landscape of the Islamic world. The game's capacity to bridge cultural boundaries and foster mutual respect among diverse communities was a key factor in its enduring appeal. By the end of the period between 700 and 1100, chess had become much more than a game in the Islamic world. It was a widespread and recognized activity in the major urban centers, enriched by the creation of written problems and composed positions, and embraced as a respected intellectual pursuit that transcended cultural boundaries. The preservation and expansion of chess during these centuries laid the groundwork for its continued development and its eventual transmission to new regions and cultures in the centuries that followed. In the centuries spanning from 900 to 1400, chess made its first deliberate steps onto the stage of medieval European life. This period marks the transition of chess from a distant curiosity encountered at the edges of Christendom to a recognizable and increasingly embedded pastime in select European regions. The earliest documented appearances of chess in Europe are not confined to a single city or kingdom, but rather emerge in a variety of contact zones shaped by trade, conquest, and cultural exchange. Southern Europe, especially the lands influenced by Arab expansion and commerce, served as one of the principal gateways for the game's arrival. By the close of the first millennium, chess had already established a tangible presence in several notable locations. One of the earliest and most significant records of chess's European appearance is found in the manuscript known as Verses Descatches, composed around 997 and preserved at Einsiedeln Abbey in Switzerland. This poem, written in Latin, stands as the oldest known European text to describe the game of chess, attesting not only to the presence of chess in the region, but also to its ability to inspire literary reflection. In the Iberian Peninsula, chess reached the county of Urgell in present-day Spain around the year 100,000. This is confirmed by documentary mentions, including the will of Ermengol, Count of Urgell, dated July 28, 1008. In his testament, Ermengol bequeathed his chess pieces to the convent of St. Giles near Nimes, a gesture that underscores the game's status as both a valued personal possession and an object worthy of ecclesiastical inheritance. The specificity of this bequest highlights the early integration of chess into both noble and religious contexts within the region. Further to the east, chess arrived in Russia around the same period, circa 1000, facilitated by the twin vectors of Byzantine influence and Viking trade routes. The movement of chess into these northern territories illustrates the game's versatility and its capacity to traverse linguistic, religious, and cultural boundaries. By the turn of the millennium, chess had also found a foothold in Italy. Documentary evidence points to the game being played in medieval Florence by the year 100,000, a testament to the city's position as a crossroads of Mediterranean exchange. The presence of chess in such diverse locales as Switzerland, Spain, Russia, and Italy, within a span of decades, points to a pattern of transmission shaped by commerce, diplomacy, and the mingling of elite circles. The spread of chess into the more remote reaches of Europe continued in the following centuries. In Iceland, chess is attested by the 12th century, introduced through channels that connected the island to the broader Scandinavian and European world. The Vikings themselves are recorded as playing a version of chess during the 10th century, further demonstrating the adaptability of the game across distinct cultural settings. Contemporaneous accounts from these regions sometimes reflect an air of fascination, suspicion, or even controversy regarding chess. In 1061, Peter Damian, a Benedictine monk and reformer, denounced the Bishop of Florence for playing chess. This episode, preserved in Peter Damian's own writings, provides a rare glimpse into the moral and social debates that could accompany the game's arrival. The very fact that a bishop's engagement with chess warranted public rebuke indicates that chess was not merely a foreign novelty, but a subject of ethical scrutiny within ecclesiastical circles. Peter Damian's denunciation did not occur in isolation. It is representative of broader tensions regarding the appropriateness of chess for the clergy and the laity alike. The initial reception of chess in Europe was thus marked by both curiosity and ambivalence. Surviving texts, such as the Verses Descatches, as well as legal documents, wills and polemical writings, provide concrete evidence of chess's presence and the ways in which it was perceived and debated. The transmission of chess across Europe occurred through a mosaic of contact zones, including the courts of Muslim Spain, the monastic centers of Switzerland, the trade routes of the Vikings, and the urban networks of Italy. The diversity of these entry points ensured that chess would be received in varied and sometimes conflicting ways, laying the groundwork for its adaptation to the symbolic and social structures of medieval Europe. As chess became more familiar to European audiences, its pieces and the structure of the game began to acquire new layers of meaning, shaped by the feudal order. The chessboard, with its ranks and files, lent itself naturally to interpretation as a microcosm of medieval society. The pieces themselves underwent a process of adaptation and reinterpretation, reflecting the hierarchical and symbolic language of the age. In medieval European sets, the figures represented roles such as the king, the advisor or vizier, cavalry, elephants, chariots, and foot soldiers. These corresponded to the realities and ideals of feudal life, with the king occupying the central position, surrounded by advisors and warriors, and supported by the humble yet numerous pawns. The transformation of the game's pieces is evident in both the terminology and the physical artifacts of the period. The queen, for example, was a relatively weak piece in medieval chess, moving only one square diagonally until the end of the period. This limited movement reflected not only the inherited rules, but also the symbolic status of the queen within the feudal hierarchy, where the king's authority remained paramount. The bishop piece, known as the alfine in medieval Europe, displayed a variety of forms, ranging from an old man seated on a chair to representations of animals or even trees. The alfine's movement was distinct from its modern counterpart, as it could jump 2 squares diagonally, leaping over other pieces in its path. This peculiar motion set it apart from the rest of the pieces and added a layer of complexity to the game. Pawns in medieval chess were restricted to a single square advance at their initial move, emphasizing their role as the slow and expendable infantry of the feudal order. The adaptation of chess pieces to feudal symbolism was not merely a matter of nomenclature or artistic design. It was also reflected in the ways that players and commentators understood the game. The chessboard became a stage upon which the duties, privileges, and dangers of the social hierarchy could be enacted and contemplated. Written rules for chess from the late 1200s provide further evidence of the game's evolving structure and symbolism. These codifications, while still rooted in the inherited forms of the game, reveal a growing interest in the precise regulation of play, mirroring the legal and social frameworks of feudal society. The presence of such written rules suggests that chess had achieved a level of institutional recognition and that its symbolic meanings were being discussed and transmitted alongside its practical techniques. The symbolic interpretation of chess was not confined to abstract speculation. In some cases, specific individuals or groups are documented as promoting readings of the game that emphasized its allegorical significance. While many of these interpretations circulated anonymously or within closed circles, the existence of texts and illustrations assigning moral or social meaning to chess is well attested. The chessboard, with its orderly arrangement of ranks and pieces, could be seen as a metaphor for the structure of society itself, with each individual occupying a prescribed place and fulfilling a designated role. The king's vulnerability and the mutual dependence of the pieces became lessons in duty, loyalty, and the limits of power. Such allegorical readings resonated with the values and anxieties of feudal society, reinforcing the legitimacy of hierarchy, while also inviting reflection on its fragility. Debates regarding the appropriateness of chess's symbolism in feudal contexts were not uncommon. Some critics questioned whether the game's representations were suitable for Christian audiences, or whether they might inadvertently glorify secular power at the expense of spiritual values. Nevertheless, The persistence of chess, in both noble and religious settings, indicates that its symbolic potential was widely recognized and in many cases embraced. The integration of chess into the religious and noble life of medieval Europe is documented through a variety of sources and artifacts. Chess was played in monasteries and feudal courts, bridging the worlds of contemplation and worldly power. The game's presence in these settings is attested by both written records and physical objects. In the early 11th century, chess became popular among farmers in Strobeck, Germany, a phenomenon that suggests the game's appeal was not limited to the aristocracy, but could also extend into rural communities. The spread of chess to Strobeck reflects the game's capacity to transcend social boundaries, even as it remained most closely associated with elite circles. Among the nobility, chess was regarded as a mark of education and refinement. In 11th century Europe, the inclusion of chess in the training of young aristocrats is well documented. The ability to play chess was considered a desirable accomplishment, alongside other pursuits such as hunting, music, and the study of classical texts. Chessboards owned by the nobility were often made of wood or metal and featured pieces crafted from expensive materials. These luxury objects served as symbols of status, as well as instruments of recreation. Specific instances of chess being played by prominent figures are also recorded. In 1213, King John of England is documented as having played chess when deputies from Rouen arrived. Such references provide a direct link between the game and the exercise of political authority, as well as a glimpse into the daily life of medieval rulers. The participation of kings, counts, and bishops in the game underscores its acceptance at the highest levels of society, even as it continued to provoke debate and controversy. Within monastic environments, attitudes toward chess were more ambivalent. While some monasteries appear to have tolerated or even encouraged the game as a form of intellectual exercise, others regarded it with suspicion. The denunciation of the Bishop of Florence by Peter Damian in 1061 is a case in point, reflecting ongoing controversies regarding the appropriateness of chess for members of the clergy. Such debates were often shaped by concerns about the potential for distraction, gambling, or the neglect of spiritual duties. Nevertheless, the bequest of chess pieces by Ermengol, Count of Urgell, to the convent of St. Giles suggests that chess could also be regarded as a legitimate and even honorable pursuit within religious contexts. Inventories, manuscripts, and surviving chess sets from the period provide additional evidence of the game's presence in both noble and monastic settings. These artifacts, whether preserved in abbeys, castles, or private collections, attest to the material culture of chess in medieval Europe. The craftsmanship and expense lavished upon chess sets reflect the esteem in which the game was held, as well as its integration into the rituals of elite sociability. Rules, etiquette, and restrictions associated with chess in noble and religious environments are less frequently detailed in contemporaneous accounts, but the existence of written rules from the late 1200s points to a growing interest in the regulation of play. This codification may have served to distinguish acceptable forms of recreation from those deemed inappropriate or dangerous. Throughout the period from 900 to 1400, chess established itself as a practiced and debated activity within both religious and noble circles. Its journey from the contact zones of southern Europe to the courts, monasteries, and rural communities of the continent was marked by adaptation, controversy, and a steadily growing sense of familiarity. Surviving texts, artifacts, and documented episodes illuminate the ways in which chess was received, interpreted, and integrated into the fabric of medieval life, reflecting both the enduring appeal of the game and the complexity of the society that embraced it. As the 15th century unfolded across Europe, chess found itself at a moment of profound transformation. The centuries-old game, once defined by slow maneuver and methodical calculation, began to shift in both pace and character. The period between 1400 and 1500 witnessed a gradual but decisive movement toward greater speed, dynamism, and spectacle. These changes, rooted in both evolving attitudes and concrete rule modifications, would eventually give shape to the modern game. The transformation was neither instantaneous nor universally embraced, but it left a mark that is still visible in the chess of today. During the early years of this period, chess was still largely played according to rules that had persisted for hundreds of years. The game, as inherited from the medieval world, was deliberate and often slow. The queen, then known in many regions as the furs, remained a relatively weak piece, able to move only a single square diagonally. Bishops were similarly limited, moving only 2 squares at a time and leaping over intervening pieces. These constraints produced a game of intricate, gradual development, where swift attacks were rare and the endgame could be a protracted affair. In this context, the prevailing attitude among many players and commentators favored patience and subtlety over speed and aggression. Yet, as the 15th century progressed, discontent with the slow tempo of the traditional game began to surface in various corners of Europe. Evidence from the late 1400s points to a growing appetite for a more dynamic and forceful style of play. Contemporaneous accounts describe a new form of chess that began to circulate, one that replaced its slower predecessor, and was characterized by a much brisker pace and heightened excitement. This new version quickly gained notoriety and was referred to by several evocative names. In some regions, it was called Queen's Chess, a nod to the dramatically enhanced powers of the queen. Elsewhere, it was known as Mad Chess, suggesting a sense of wildness and unpredictability that contrasted sharply with the measured cadence of the old game. The rapid spread of this new chess across Europe in the late 15th century is itself a testament to the changing preferences of players and enthusiasts. While the records do not single out specific individuals or groups as the originators of these shifts in attitude, the widespread adoption of the new rules indicates a broad collective desire for innovation. Players were evidently drawn to the possibility of swifter attacks and more decisive outcomes. The introduction of sweeping new powers for both the queen and the bishop fundamentally altered the rhythm of play, enabling combinations and tactics that had previously been impossible. The game's tempo accelerated, and with it, the emotional temperature of the contest rose. At the same time, the transition was not entirely smooth or uncontested. Although the surviving records from this period do not preserve detailed debates or polemics over the desirability of the new style, the very existence of names like Mad Chess suggests that some observers viewed these changes with a mixture of fascination and unease. The older, slower form of chess did not vanish overnight. Instead, it lingered alongside its more dynamic counterpart for a time, as players experimented with the new rules and assessed their impact on the essence of the game. The process of transition was marked by both enthusiasm for innovation and a degree of nostalgia for the traditions of the past. Central to this transformation was the evolving role of the queen. For centuries, the queen had been a modest presence on the board, limited in both range and influence. This began to change between 1475 and 1500, particularly in the Kingdom of Valencia in Spain. It is here that the earliest documented evidence of the queen's new powers emerges. In 1475, the poem Scucs d'Amor, written in Catalan in Valencia, appeared as the first document to describe the queen moving as the modern dama. This work not only records the expanded movement of the queen, but also marks the publication of what is recognized as the first game of modern chess. The changes introduced in Scucs d'Amor were both radical and consequential. The queen was no longer restricted to a single square diagonal move. Instead, she gained the ability to traverse the board in any straight line, horizontally, vertically, or diagonally, for any number of free squares. This transformation made her the most powerful piece on the board, capable of sweeping attacks and rapid redeployments. Alongside this, the bishop's movement was similarly expanded, allowing it to travel to any free square along an open diagonal. The combined effect of these innovations was to inject unprecedented energy and tactical complexity into the game. The adoption of the new queen's movement was not instantaneous or universal. The modern moves for the queen and bishop were slowly embraced between 1475 and 1525, with different regions adopting the changes at their own pace. However, by the end of the 15th century, these new powers were documented as defining features of chess in several parts of Europe. The transformation was significant enough that chess played under the new rules was often distinguished by name from its predecessor, further underscoring the magnitude of the change. Contemporaneous accounts, while often sparse, do attribute considerable significance to the queen's enhanced role. The appearance of the queen as the dominant force on the board was recognized as a fundamental departure from tradition. The game described in Skux d'Amour was not only a literary curiosity, but also a record of a new way of playing chess, one that emphasized speed, aggression, and the possibility of dramatic reversals. The reactions of players and commentators, where documented, range from admiration for the queen's newfound power to a recognition of the challenges it posed for established strategies. The process of formalizing and disseminating these changes was facilitated by a small number of writers and publishers. In 1497, Luis Ramirez Lucena produced the earliest surviving work devoted to the modern European game. His treatise not only preserved the rules and strategies of the new chess, but also helped to spread its influence beyond the circles where it had first taken root. While Lucena is not credited with originating the changes, his work stands as a critical milestone in their documentation and transmission. The impact of these innovations on the rhythm and feel of chess was profound. The new form of the game rapidly supplanted its thousand-year-old predecessor across much of Europe, a process that unfolded within the span of a generation or two in the late 15th century. The cumulative effect of the expanded movements for the queen and bishop, along with other refinements, was to shorten the average length of games and to increase the frequency of decisive outcomes. Players could now orchestrate swift attacks and counterattacks, leading to games that were more dynamic and less likely to stagnate in drawn-out maneuvering. The changing character of chess during this period is reflected in several key publications. In 1471, the Göttingen manuscript appeared as the first book to deal solely with chess. This work, though focused on earlier forms of the game, set the stage for the burgeoning literature that would accompany the rise of modern chess. 3 years later, in 1474, William Caxton published The Game and Play of Chesser, the first chess book in English. These works, along with others that followed, provided players with new resources for studying and understanding the evolving game. Contemporaneous accounts occasionally remark on the heightened excitement and accessibility of the new chess. The faster tempo and increased possibilities for creative play attracted both seasoned veterans and new enthusiasts. The transformation made chess more appealing to a broader audience, as the prospect of long, drawn-out contests gave way to games that could be resolved in a single sitting. The new rhythm of play, marked by sudden attacks and rapid shifts in fortune, was both a source of fascination and, for some, a cause for concern. While some players and commentators embraced the changes, others expressed reservations. The shift toward a faster, more aggressive style of play was not universally welcomed. Critics worried that the essence of chess might be lost in the pursuit of spectacle, and that the virtues of patience and deep calculation could be overshadowed by the allure of quick victories. These debates, though not always preserved in detail, are hinted at in the language used to describe the new game. The term mad chess, for example, carries with it a sense of ambivalence, reflecting both excitement and anxiety about the game's evolving nature. Despite these reservations, the momentum behind the new form of chess proved irresistible. The game's transformation during the 15th century was not simply a matter of new rules, but of a broader cultural shift in attitudes toward play, competition, and innovation. The embrace of speed and power on the chessboard mirrored wider changes in European society, where the Renaissance spirit of exploration and reinvention found expression in many spheres of life. By the close of the 15th century, chess in many regions had become a faster, more dynamic game, recognized for its transformed rhythm and style. The queen, once a modest and peripheral figure, now stood at the center of the action, her sweeping powers emblematic of the new possibilities that defined the era. The changes of this period laid the foundation for the further evolution of chess in the centuries to follow, even as they sparked debates and reflections on the true nature of the game. The Renaissance transformation of chess, then, was marked by a complex interplay of innovation and tradition, enthusiasm and skepticism, acceleration and reflection. The documentary evidence from the period captures a world in the midst of change, as players and commentators grappled with the implications of a game that was both familiar and radically new. It was a time when the pace of play quickened, the pieces themselves took on new significance, and the ancient game of chess acquired a fresh and enduring vitality. In the early decades of the 17th century, chess began to appear, with increasing regularity in the public spaces of European cities. No longer confined exclusively to the private parlors of nobility or the cloisters of learned societies, the game found a new home in the bustling, vibrant world of coffeehouses and salons. In Paris, this transformation was signaled by the opening of Café Procope, which stood across from the Comédie Française and quickly became a magnet for the city's intellectuals, artists, and chess enthusiasts. The clientele at Café Procope, during the late 17th and early 18th centuries, was notably diverse. Philosophers, musicians, actors, and artists mingled with chess players, each drawn by the lively atmosphere and the promise of stimulating conversation. Within these walls, chess was not simply a pastime, but a visible communal activity, woven into the social fabric of the city. The Café de la Régence, which began operating at 61 Rue Saint-Honoré in the Palais Royal after 1718 under the ownership of Leclerc, soon earned a reputation as the preeminent venue for chess in Paris. This establishment was more than just a coffeehouse. It featured a dedicated game room where patrons could engage in chess, cards, checkers, backgammon, and dominoes. The presence of a dedicated space for games signaled a new level of public engagement with chess, distinguishing it from the more informal play that might occur in a tavern or private home. The Café de la Régence became synonymous with chess excellence, a fact attested to by Denis Diderot, who remarked in 1760 that it was the place in Paris where chess was played best. This observation situates the café, not only as a physical location, but as a symbol of the city's devotion to the game. Notable individuals were frequently associated with these Parisian venues. François-André Danican Philidor, renowned as both a musician and a chess player, was a regular presence at Café Procope during the early 1700s. His dual career reflects the fluid boundaries between artistic and intellectual pursuits in the period, and his frequent appearances at the café underscored the social prestige attached to chess. The Café de la Régence also attracted figures such as Rousseau, Voltaire, Franklin, and Robespierre during the 18th century, each drawn by the game's intellectual challenge and by the opportunity for public engagement. The atmosphere within these coffeehouses was shaped by a blend of competitive seriousness and convivial exchange. Contemporary accounts, such as Diderot's, evoke a setting where skill and reputation mattered, yet the etiquette of play was informed by the broader customs of urban sociability. Chess was played in view of others, with games observed, discussed, and sometimes debated by onlookers. The presence of both professionals and amateurs fostered an environment where instruction and demonstration could occur spontaneously, and where the boundaries between participant and spectator were often fluid. In London, too, coffeehouses emerged as important meeting places for chess players during the 18th century. While specific establishments are less frequently named in surviving records, the pattern of regular gatherings is well attested. These venues offered a space where reputations could be formed, challenged and maintained, and where the communal aspect of chess play took on a distinctly public character. Although no formal organizations or clubs are documented as facilitating chess gatherings in either Paris or London during this period, the coffeehouses themselves served as de facto institutions, providing the infrastructure and social context necessary for the game's flourishing. The transformation of chess into a recognizable feature of public social life thus unfolded gradually, shaped by the rhythms of urban life and the evolving customs of European society. By the latter part of the 18th century, chess had become an integral part of the cultural landscape in cities such as Paris and London, its presence in coffeehouses and salons emblematic of a broader movement toward communal intellectual engagement. As chess became more visible and accessible within these urban spaces, the rise of printed analysis began to exert a profound influence on the development of the game. The publication of chess books, treatises, and periodicals during this period marked a significant shift in the dissemination of knowledge and the cultivation of skill. Printed materials made it possible for players to study the game systematically, to compare different approaches, and to engage with analytical systems that might otherwise have remained localized or ephemeral. At Café Procopie in Paris, chess players gathered not only to play, but also to test themselves against professionals, such as Philidor, who during the early 1700s played for money against both regulars and visitors. These professionals often played at odds, offering weaker players advantages such as pawn and move, or even a knight, a practice which reflected both the competitive ethos of the time and the pedagogical function of public play. The presence of printed analysis facilitated these encounters, providing a shared reference point for both instruction and competition. The publication of chess treatises introduced new analytical frameworks and systems of play. While the specifics of these works, such as titles and authors, are not detailed in the surviving records for this period, their influence is evident in the way chess was studied and discussed. Players could now consult printed materials to learn about openings, problems, and strategies, and these texts circulated among the clientele of coffeehouses and salons. The distribution of such works was often informal, with copies passed from hand to hand, or read aloud in public settings, but their impact was unmistakable. The ability to study chess outside of the immediate context of play enabled deeper reflection and more systematic improvement. Notable individuals played a crucial role in this process. Philidor, for example, was recognized not only for his prowess at the board, but also for his analytical contributions to the game. His dual identity as both a performer and a theorist exemplified the new possibilities opened up by print culture. Other professionals, such as Verdoni, divided their time between music and chess play in Paris cafes during the 18th century, further blurring the lines between public performance and private study. The reception of printed analysis was shaped by the social dynamics of the coffeehouse. In Paris, Diderot's 1760 observation that Café de la Régence was the place for the best chess play suggests that the café's clientele was both aware of and invested in the latest developments in chess theory. The presence of influential figures such as Rousseau, Voltaire, Franklin, and Robespierre at the Café de la Régence during the 18th century underscores the intellectual prestige attached to the game and to its literature. Although no contemporaneous quotations from readers or critics regarding these publications have been documented, the regular use of printed materials for instruction and competition points to a high degree of engagement and critical evaluation. In London, the chess-playing public likewise gathered at coffeehouses, where reputations were established and maintained. The role of printed analysis in these settings was similar. It provided a common language for discussion, a basis for comparison, and a means of distinguishing genuine skill from mere bravado. While no specific organizations or clubs are documented as using printed materials for instruction or competition during this period, the informal networks that developed around coffeehouses fulfilled many of the same functions, enabling the spread and refinement of analytical knowledge. By the end of the 18th century, printed analysis had begun to shape both the content and accessibility of chess knowledge. The game was no longer solely an oral tradition or a matter of private intuition. It was increasingly a subject of study, debate, and public demonstration, with printed texts serving as both guides and arbiters of quality. As chess continued to flourish in public spaces, and as printed analysis became more widely available, a process of informal standardization began to take hold. Repeated play within the context of coffeehouses and salons led to the emergence of recurring conventions and unwritten rules, which, while not formally codified, nonetheless provided a degree of consistency and predictability to the game. The documentation of such conventions from this period is fragmentary, and there is little direct evidence describing the precise content of these unwritten rules. However, the regularity with which chess was played in coffeehouses, such as Café de la Régence and the London establishments, suggests that certain practices were widely understood and generally observed. Disputes and variations in rules were likely resolved on a case-by-case basis, through negotiation or by appeal to the authority of experienced players. The absence of formal organizations or clubs adopting or promoting specific standards during this period meant that standardization was a matter of habit and consensus rather than decree. References to commonly accepted equipment, notation, or terminology from this period are limited. The evolution of coffeehouse chessmen, known as Old Vienna style, with their sturdy designs and round bases, would not occur until the 19th century, and the distinctive features of these sets, such as bishops with separate ball tops and felt pads, were not yet present. Similarly, the development of compact designs produced in Central European turning shops and the adoption of typical king heights of about 7 centimeters belong to a later era. During the 17th and 18th centuries, the equipment used in coffeehouses and salons was likely varied, reflecting both local traditions and the preferences of individual players. Despite the lack of formal standards, the repeated interactions among players in public spaces fostered a gradual convergence of practice. Players adapted to emerging conventions as a matter of convenience and mutual understanding, while some may have resisted changes that threatened established habits. The resolution of disputes, whether over rules or etiquette, depended on the authority of recognized experts and the persuasive power of custom. No named individuals or groups are documented as advocating particular practices or reforms during this period, and there are no contemporaneous quotations reflecting attitudes towards standardization. The process was largely organic, unfolding through the accumulated experience of countless games played in the public eye. By the close of the 18th century, chess had developed recognizable patterns of play and understanding, shaped by the interplay of public sociability, printed analysis, and habitual practice. The game's presence in coffeehouses and salons, its growing body of literature, and the informal conventions that guided its play all contributed to the creation of a shared chess culture. Within the urban centers of Europe, chess had become not only a pastime, but a communal endeavor, sustained by the rhythms of repeated play and the exchange of ideas. This environment laid the groundwork for the more formal structures and standards that would emerge in the following century. But within the window from 1600 to 1800, chess remained a living tradition, shaped by the people and places that embraced it. As the 19th century dawned, chess found itself at a crossroads between tradition and transformation. The game, long played in drawing rooms, coffeehouses, and private circles, was enjoying a surge in popularity that crossed national borders and social classes. Yet, this very expansion brought to the surface a tangle of competing customs, ambiguous rules, and practical challenges that demanded resolution. The need for standardized rules and reliable timekeeping became increasingly pressing as chess players from distant cities and countries came into contact, whether through correspondence or, more significantly, across the boards of emerging tournaments and clubs. In the early years of the century, the problem of inconsistent rules was far from theoretical. Major chess clubs in different cities published their own sets of regulations, each with subtle but sometimes consequential differences. In 1803, the Hague Chess Club issued its own rulebook, setting out the particular conventions followed in its games. Just a few years later, in 1807, the London Chess Club did the same, followed by the Paris Club in 1836 and the Petersburg Club in 1854. These documents addressed issues ranging from the movement of pieces to the procedures for claims of checkmate or stalemate. While these clubs provided much-needed structure for their members, their regionalized approaches sometimes led to confusion when players met away from their home institutions. A move accepted in Paris might be disputed in London. A draw claimed in The Hague might be denied in St. Petersburg. The proliferation of local rules reflected the vibrancy of chess culture in these cities, but also highlighted the underlying lack of unity. As competitive chess grew more organized, the drawbacks of such fragmentation became increasingly visible. In 1851, Howard Staunton, widely regarded as one of the leading players and promoters of the game, recognized the need for a unified code that could be accepted across national boundaries. Staunton called for a constituent assembly for remodeling the laws of chess, an appeal that signaled both the urgency and ambition of the moment. He argued that the lack of consistent rules was a barrier to fair play and international competition. Staunton's advocacy for standardized laws was echoed by others. In 1854, Tassilo von Hildebrand und der Laser, a German chess master and influential writer, published his own proposals for a set of chess rules. Von der Laser's work drew on both his extensive playing experience and his study of existing codes, and it contributed to the gradual convergence of national practices into a more universal set of laws. Alongside the codification of rules, the issue of timekeeping became a focal point of innovation. In the absence of time controls, matches could stretch for hours or even days, with players sometimes accused of deliberate stalling or endless pondering. The need for a fair and practical solution led to the adoption of timekeeping devices during the 19th century. Initially, hourglasses were used to measure the duration of each player's moves, introducing a new element of discipline and pace to the game. As technology advanced, mechanical clocks replaced hourglasses, offering greater precision and ease of use. The first documented use of time controls for chess games occurred in the mid-1800s, marking a turning point in how matches were conducted. Time controls not only curbed excessive delays, but also added a layer of psychological pressure, challenging players to balance careful calculation with swift decision-making. The introduction of timekeeping and the push for standardized rules had a profound impact on the conduct of chess. The touch move rule, which required a player to move a piece once it had been touched, was incorporated into new laws during the 19th century. This rule aimed to prevent hesitation or second thoughts at the board, reinforcing the principle of commitment to one's choices. Another significant development was the establishment of the convention that white moves first, which became formalized in 1889. This rule provided a clear starting point for every game and eliminated disputes over the order of play. Throughout this period, the efforts of clubs and influential individuals were central to the process of standardization. While specific records of contemporaneous attitudes toward these changes are limited, the actions of figures like Staunton and von der Laser, as well as the adoption of time controls by leading clubs and tournaments, reflect a growing consensus that the integrity and appeal of chess depended on clear, consistent regulations. By the end of the 19th century, the game had begun to adopt these innovations in response to the practical needs of an increasingly connected chess community. As the rules of chess became more uniform, the social fabric of the game was also undergoing rapid transformation. The 19th century witnessed the rise of chess clubs as vibrant centers of activity and fellowship. While the formation of clubs had roots in the previous century, it was during the 1800s that these institutions truly flourished, particularly in the great cities of Europe. Clubs provided not only a venue for regular play, but also a framework for organizing competitions, maintaining records, and fostering a sense of camaraderie among enthusiasts. The proliferation of chess clubs was accompanied by the formalization of tournaments, which brought structure and prestige to competitive chess. The organization and conduct of formal tournaments became a hallmark of the era. These events varied in format, from round-robin contests in which every participant faced each other, to knockout competitions that eliminated players after each loss. The first international tournaments, which emerged during the 19th century, underscored the necessity of consistent rules across nations and heightened the importance of fair adjudication. The development of standardized tournament rules was a response to the complexities of competitive play. Draws by agreement, for example, became a standard practice, allowing players to mutually recognize deadlocked positions and avoid interminable games. The introduction of the Staunton chess set in 1849 further contributed to the uniformity of tournament conditions. Designed for clarity and ease of use, the Staunton set quickly gained acceptance and became the preferred style for formal play. Clubs and tournaments often maintained their own membership structures, codes of conduct, and regulations, reflecting both the seriousness and the sociability of chess culture. Records indicate that clubs kept detailed logs of games, rankings, and sometimes even published periodicals devoted to analysis and commentary. These practices helped to elevate the status of chess and its practitioners, fostering a sense of identity and pride among members. The influence of clubs and tournaments extended beyond the confines of their meeting rooms. As chess became more visible through organized competition, its social standing grew. Participation in club matches and tournaments was seen as a mark of distinction, and successful players could achieve considerable recognition within their communities. While written accounts from participants or observers regarding club or tournament experiences are not always abundant, the steady growth of these institutions and the increasing sophistication of their operations testify to their centrality in the chess world of the 19th century. By the close of the century, chess clubs and tournaments had become indispensable pillars of organized play. They provided the scaffolding upon which the modern chess community was built, offering both a sense of belonging and a stage for the display of skill and ingenuity. The codification of rules and the institutionalization of chess through clubs and tournaments set the stage for a deeper transformation, the emergence of chess as a structured sport. Throughout the 19th century, efforts to standardize every aspect of the game, from equipment to competition formats, gained momentum. The introduction of the Staunton chess set in 1849 was a defining moment in this process. Its design, characterized by easily distinguishable pieces and a stable base, quickly became the universal standard, replacing the diverse and sometimes unwieldy sets used previously. The size of chess pieces and the dimensions of board squares were also standardized, ensuring that players everywhere competed under the same physical conditions. The need for clarity and consistency extended to the recording of moves. Codified systems for notation developed during the 19th century, enabling players and analysts to document games with precision. Stammer's notation system, which used files labeled A through H and ranks numbered 1 to 8, was adopted in some European countries, providing a common language for discussing and studying chess positions. The rule requiring the white square to be at the right-hand corner of the board, which appeared in the early part of the century, further contributed to the uniformity of play. As the organizational framework of chess solidified, the game began to be described and treated as a sport in contemporary sources. The introduction of competition formats, time controls, and standardized equipment aligned chess with the broader values of fairness, discipline, and merit that characterized other organized sports of the era. The emergence of the threefold repetition rule in the 1880s, which allowed a game to be declared a draw if the same position occurred 3 times, reflected a growing attention to the nuances of competitive fairness. Although formal national or regional governing bodies for chess did not yet dominate the landscape, the groundwork was being laid for such organizations through the consistent practices adopted by leading clubs and tournament organizers. The increasing regularity of rankings, match records, and published analyses contributed to the sense of chess as a serious and structured activity. Public perception of chess also evolved during this period. As tournaments attracted larger audiences and received coverage in newspapers and periodicals, chess gained recognition as a legitimate field of competition. The achievements of prominent players, the excitement of closely contested matches, and the intellectual rigor of the game all contributed to its growing status. By the end of the 19th century, chess had achieved a level of organization and codification that set it apart from its earlier, more informal incarnations. The adoption of standardized rules, equipment, and notation, combined with the institutional support of clubs and tournaments, transformed chess into an organized, competitive sport with established structures. The game's evolution during this period laid the foundation for the global phenomenon it would become in the years that followed, marking a decisive chapter in the history of chess. At the start of the 20th century, chess entered a period of profound transformation, marked by the rise of formal institutions, the crystallization of distinct ideological schools, and the elevation of the game into a symbol of cultural and national achievement. The decades between 1900 and 1970 saw chess move beyond the realm of individual pursuit and informal club play. As national and international organizations took root, philosophies of play became more sharply articulated, and chess achievements were woven into the fabric of public life and state ambition. This era witnessed the gradual but unmistakable institutionalization and ideological deepening of chess, shaping the way it was taught, played, and perceived across the world. The foundation of chess federations and the evolution of governance structures represented a decisive shift in the organization of competitive play. In 1924, during the 8th Olympic Games in Paris, a pivotal moment occurred with the establishment of a new international body, the Fédération Internationale des Échecs, or FIDE. The initiative for creating this federation came from Pierre Vincent of France and L. Ries of Great Britain, who recognized the need for a unified authority to oversee the growing international chess community. At its inception, the organization was briefly known as FIP, before adopting the now familiar acronym FIP at its second Congress, held in Zurich in 1925. FIDE's formation marked the beginning of a new era in chess governance. For the first time, an international body existed to coordinate, standardize, and promote chess competition on a global scale. Alexander Rube of the Netherlands, who served as FIDE's first president from 1924 until 1949, played a central role in guiding the fledgling organization through its early years. Under his leadership, FIDE began to lay the groundwork for a more structured approach to international competition. Among the most significant milestones was the organization of the first official chess Olympiad, held in London in 1927. This event brought together national teams from around the world, providing a regular and formalized system for international team competition under FIDE's administration. As the decades progressed, the influence of FIDE continued to expand. In 1948, a major change occurred when FIDE assumed responsibility for organizing the World Chess Championship. This transition marked the end of an era in which World Championship matches were arranged through private negotiation and often subject to personal or national rivalries. By bringing the organization of the championship under a formal international authority, FIDE introduced a new level of transparency and regularity to the world's most prestigious chess contest. The role of leadership in these developments was significant. After Alexander Rube, Folke Rogard of Sweden became president of FIDE in 1949 and held the office until 1970. Rogard's tenure was characterized by a continued emphasis on the formalization of rules, the expansion of FIDE's membership, and the administration of a growing number of international events. The governance of chess during this period was not limited to the activities of FIDE alone. National federations also matured and gained prominence, developing their own systems for organizing tournaments, training players, and representing their countries in international forums. The presence of formalized tournament systems became increasingly common, with national championships and qualifying events administered by these bodies. The standardization of rules and the codification of tournament procedures helped to ensure fairness and consistency, while also facilitating the exchange of players and ideas across borders. Contemporaneous accounts from this era often reflect on the impact of governance structures on the chess community. The existence of reliable, well-administered competitions provided players with clear pathways for advancement and recognition, while also contributing to the development of national and international rivalries. The work of leaders such as Alexander Rube and Folke Rogard is frequently cited in historical records as instrumental in shaping the direction and legitimacy of organized chess. By the close of this period, chess governance had become more formalized and institutionalized, providing a stable foundation for the game's further development and reach. Parallel to the evolution of institutional frameworks, the first 7 decades of the 20th century were marked by the emergence and interplay of distinct schools of chess thinking. During this era, the intellectual landscape of chess was shaped by lively debates, the rise of new philosophies, and the introduction of innovative training methods. The classical school, rooted in the traditions of the 19th century, remained influential throughout the early and mid-20th century. This approach, exemplified by players such as Emanuel Lasker, emphasized principles of center control, harmonious piece development, and the accumulation of small positional advantages. Lasker, who held the World Championship title from 1894 to 1921, contributed significantly to the elaboration of classical principles through his writings and play. His approach stressed flexibility, psychological insight, and the practical application of theory, shaping the thinking of generations of players. In the years following the First World War, the chess world witnessed the rise of a new and provocative movement, the hypermodern school. Led by theorists and practitioners such as Aaron Nimzowitsch, this school questioned and redefined many of the assumptions of classical chess. Hypermodern proponents argued that control of the center could be exerted not only by occupying it with pawns, but also by attacking and restraining it from a distance with pieces. Nimzowitsch, through influential works such as My System, became a leading voice for this new philosophy. His teachings emphasized prophylaxis, indirect control, and the potential of unorthodox structures, inspiring a wave of experimentation and debate. The clash between classical and hypermodern schools was not merely theoretical. In the chess literature of the 1920s, vigorous debates unfolded as leading players and writers argued the merits of their respective approaches. These exchanges, documented in books, periodicals, and tournament reports, reflected a broader intellectual ferment within the chess community. The resulting synthesis of ideas contributed to the evolution of opening theory, positional understanding, and the overall depth of chess as a discipline. A further transformation occurred with the emergence of the Soviet chess school, which rose to prominence during the mid-20th century. The Soviet approach was characterized by a systematic and collective methodology, emphasizing rigorous analysis, structured training, and the integration of psychological and scientific principles into chess preparation. Mikhail Botvinnik, a central figure in the Soviet chess school, played a pivotal role in developing and promoting these methods. Botvinnik advocated for disciplined study, the use of training games, and the detailed examination of both openings and endgames. His influence extended through formalized training centers and the mentorship of younger players, helping to establish a tradition of excellence that shaped Soviet chess for decades. The presence of influential teachers and theorists was a defining feature of this period. Figures such as Nimzovich, Lasker, and Botvinnik not only excelled as players but also contributed to the dissemination and refinement of their respective philosophies through teaching, writing, and direct mentorship. The pedagogical systems associated with these schools often included structured curricula, organized study groups, and the systematic analysis of games. In the Soviet Union, the institutional support for chess education was particularly notable, with state-sponsored programs providing resources and opportunities for talented players. Contemporaneous accounts document the ways in which these schools of thought shaped competitive play and player preparation. The adoption of hypermodern principles led to the introduction of new openings and the re-evaluation of established lines, while the Soviet emphasis on preparation and discipline contributed to the rise of a new generation of highly trained competitors. The debates and rivalries between different schools were not limited to the pages of books. They played out at the chessboard, as practitioners tested their ideas in high-profile tournaments and matches. By the end of this era, multiple schools of chess thinking had emerged, each enriching the diversity and depth of chess understanding. The growing institutionalization and intellectual sophistication of chess during the 20th century were paralleled by its elevation as a marker of cultural prestige and national identity. In numerous countries, and most notably in the Soviet Union, chess achievements were promoted as symbols of national accomplishment and cultural superiority. The Soviet Union stands out as a case where chess was actively leveraged as an instrument of state prestige. Soviet authorities invested significant resources in the development of chess, providing state sponsorship for training programs, organizing competitions, and integrating chess into the fabric of public education and youth culture. This institutional support was motivated by a desire to demonstrate the intellectual and organizational strength of the Soviet system on the world stage. Achievements in chess were celebrated in Soviet media as evidence of cultural advancement, scientific progress, and the vitality of socialist society. Public celebrations accompanied major Soviet victories in international competitions. When Mikhail Botvinnik won the World Chess Championship in 1948, he was hailed as a national hero, and his success was held up as a testament to the effectiveness of Soviet training methods and collective effort. The prominence accorded to chess in the Soviet Union extended beyond individual champions. The Chess Olympiads, organized by FIDE and featuring national teams from around the world, were framed as contests of national strength and unity. Soviet teams, which achieved remarkable success in these events, were widely celebrated, and their victories became sources of public pride. The use of chess as a vehicle for cultural diplomacy and ideological messaging was not limited to the Soviet context. Throughout the mid-20th century, international chess competitions, provided opportunities for countries to showcase their intellectual prowess and organizational capability. The Chess Olympiads, in particular, brought together diverse national delegations in a spirit of competition and mutual recognition. While the framing of these events often emphasized national rivalry, they also facilitated cultural exchange and the forging of international connections. Contemporaneous records indicate that the public and media reception of chess achievements varied across countries, but frequently reflected broader themes of national pride and cultural aspiration. In the Soviet Union, chess successes were presented as demonstrations of the superiority of the socialist way of life. State newspapers, radio broadcasts, and public ceremonies reinforced the image of the chess champion as a model citizen and cultural ambassador. In other countries, outstanding players and teams were similarly celebrated, and international matches attracted widespread attention as arenas for the expression of national identity. Specific individuals were elevated to the status of national heroes as a result of their chess accomplishments. Mikhail Botvinnik's rise to prominence in the Soviet Union illustrates the extent to which a chess player could become a symbol of collective achievement and aspiration. The recognition accorded to champions extended beyond the chessboard, as their victories were woven into narratives of national progress and international standing. By the end of this period, chess had become firmly established as a recognized vehicle for cultural expression and national pride. Its achievements were celebrated in public life, its champions were honored as representatives of their peoples, and its competitions were imbued with significance that transcended the boundaries of the game itself. Through the intertwined processes of institutionalization, intellectual development, and cultural elevation, chess between 1900 and 1970 was transformed from a pastime of individuals and small circles into a structured, ideologically rich, and publicly celebrated pursuit. The formation and maturation of federations and governing bodies provided the organizational backbone for modern chess, while the proliferation of schools of thought fueled a vibrant and evolving intellectual tradition. At the same time, the game's ascent as a symbol of national prestige and cultural achievement reflected the growing importance of chess in the public imagination and in the ambitions of states. By the close of this era, chess stood as both a deeply institutionalized sport and a powerful emblem of human creativity, discipline, and collective endeavor. In the decades following 1970, chess entered a period of transformation shaped by the evolving relationship between people and machines. The story of computers in chess did not begin with widespread revolution, but with incremental advances, careful experimentation, and the curiosity of a select group of researchers and players. Early on, the notion that a machine could analyze, much less play, chess at a high level was both a technical challenge and a conceptual provocation. The period saw a gradual but unmistakable shift in how chess was explored, understood, and ultimately contested. Records from the mid-1980s highlight the work of Feng-Sheng Su at Carnegie Mellon University, who developed Chip Test, a computer system designed specifically to play chess. Chip Test was not the first attempt at computer chess, but its creation marked a significant leap in the field. The project was rooted in the collaborative efforts of a university research team, and its progress was closely watched by both the academic community and chess enthusiasts. In 1987, Chip Test achieved a milestone by winning the North American Computer Chess Championship, an event that brought together the most advanced chess programs of the era. The victory was not only a technical triumph for Su and his colleagues, but also a public demonstration that computers could now compete with, and sometimes surpass, the best software designed for chess. The relationship between computers and human players changed dramatically in the 1990s. IBM, a company with deep resources and a history of technological innovation, set out to develop a computer capable of challenging the world's leading human chess player. Their project, Deep Blue, was designed to test the limits of artificial intelligence and computational power in a domain long considered a benchmark for human intellect. In February 1996, Deep Blue faced Garry Kasparov, the reigning world champion, in a 6-game match in Philadelphia. The event drew international attention, with chess fans, computer scientists, and the general public all watching closely. Deep Blue won the first game of the match, a historic moment that demonstrated a computer's capacity to outplay the world's best under tournament conditions. Kasparov, however, adapted quickly and ultimately won the match 4-2, reaffirming the strength and resourcefulness of human play. The encounter between Kasparov and Deep Blue was more than a contest for victory. It was a carefully observed experiment in the interaction between human intuition and machine calculation. The reactions to computer involvement in chess during this period were varied. Some players and officials regarded computer chess as an exciting new frontier, an opportunity to push the boundaries of analysis and creativity. Others viewed the growing role of machines with skepticism or concern, worrying that the essence of chess might be diluted or overshadowed by brute computational power. Public opinion was similarly divided, with some marveling at the achievements of computer scientists, and others questioning the implications for human competition. Contemporary accounts frequently discussed both the promise and the potential dangers of computer chess, reflecting a broader societal debate about the role of technology in intellectual pursuits. As computers became more sophisticated and accessible, their influence on chess deepened. The development and adoption of chess engines, specialized programs capable of analyzing positions and suggesting moves, marked a turning point in how players prepared for competition and studied the game. After 1970, advances in software and hardware made it possible for players at all levels to access analytical tools that had previously been unimaginable. Chess engines quickly became an essential resource for serious study, offering instant evaluation of positions, uncovering tactical possibilities, and identifying subtle errors. With the growth of personal computing, analysis that once required hours of human effort could now be performed in seconds. Players began to adapt their preparation habits to take advantage of these new tools. For many, engine-assisted analysis became a daily part of training, supplementing traditional study methods such as reading books or reviewing annotated games. Major tournaments saw a shift in the way players approached opening preparation, as engines made it possible to explore vast branches of opening theory and discover new ideas. This led to an acceleration of theoretical developments, with previously obscure opening lines gaining popularity and established variations subjected to renewed scrutiny. The impact of engines was not limited to elite competition. Club players and amateurs also found themselves able to access high-quality analysis, narrowing the gap between professional and recreational chess. The influence of engines extended into the very fabric of chess theory. Opening trends and strategic concepts shifted as players used engines to test long-standing assumptions and uncover hidden resources. Positions that had once been considered safe or advantageous were sometimes revealed through engine analysis to contain hidden dangers or tactical opportunities. This ongoing process of discovery contributed to a broader evolution in chess understanding, as players learned to trust, question, and sometimes challenge the recommendations of their digital assistants. The widespread adoption of engines was not without controversy. Debates emerged within the chess community about the meaning of originality, creativity, and fairness in an era of powerful analytical tools. Some argued that engines democratized chess by making advanced analysis available to all, while others worried that reliance on computers diminished the value of human insight and intuition. The role of engines in tournament preparation also raised questions about the boundaries between legitimate research and unfair assistance, particularly as technology made it easier to access and share information. Contemporary accounts reflect a range of opinions on these issues, with some embracing the new possibilities offered by engines, and others expressing concern about their long-term effects. By the close of the 20th century, engine-assisted analysis had become a central part of chess culture. Players at every level relied on computers for study, preparation, and self-improvement. The game itself was reshaped by the presence of engines, as new ideas circulated more rapidly, and old certainties were constantly re-evaluated. The relationship between human and machine, once defined by competition and skepticism, had evolved into one of collaboration and mutual discovery. As the digital era advanced, chess found a new and expansive home on the internet. The growth of online chess platforms fundamentally changed the ways in which people played, studied, and experienced the game. No longer confined to club meetings, tournaments, or informal gatherings, chess became accessible to a global audience at any hour of the day. The presence of digital play transformed the demographics of chess participation, drawing in new players from diverse backgrounds and regions. The barriers that had once limited access to chess geography, cost, and social networks were diminished by the reach of online platforms. Major online events and communities emerged as central features of modern chess culture. Players could compete in tournaments hosted by digital platforms, often with participants numbering in the thousands and representing dozens of countries. Online communities formed around these platforms, offering spaces for discussion, analysis, and social interaction. Innovations such as real-time commentary, interactive analysis tools, and instant matchmaking made chess both more engaging and more accessible. The integration of chess into daily life was further facilitated by the ubiquity of smartphones and personal computers, allowing people to play or study whenever and wherever they chose. Organizations and companies played a critical role in the expansion of online chess. They developed and maintained the infrastructure necessary to support millions of games, provided educational resources, and fostered a sense of connection among players worldwide. The efforts of these entities created a virtual ecosystem in which chess could thrive, adapting to the changing rhythms and demands of contemporary life. The digital transformation of chess was not limited to competitive play. Educational initiatives used online platforms to introduce chess to students, promote cognitive development, and encourage cross-cultural exchange. Contemporaneous accounts of chess in the digital era often describe it as a quiet but pervasive presence. Unlike the spectacle of high-profile matches or the intensity of in-person competition, online chess is woven into the fabric of everyday experience. Players log into platforms to play a quick game during a break, follow live broadcasts of major tournaments, or use digital tools to analyze their progress. The integration of chess into modern life is marked by its subtlety and accessibility, rather than by overt displays of prestige or drama. Observers note that chess, once perceived as a specialized pursuit, has become an activity available to anyone with an internet connection. The perception of chess's role in the connected world is shaped by this quiet ubiquity. It is recognized as a source of personal challenge, intellectual enjoyment, and social connection. The digital transformation has expanded the reach of chess, making it possible for people of all ages and backgrounds to participate in a tradition that spans centuries. The game's presence is felt not through grand gestures or public spectacles, but through the steady, everyday engagement of millions of players around the world. By the present day, chess stands as both a beneficiary and a contributor to the digital age. The journey from early computer experiments to the global reach of online platforms has altered not only how chess is played, but also how it is understood and valued. The influence of computers and digital connectivity has introduced new possibilities, raised new questions, and created new communities. Through these changes, chess has established itself as a quiet but enduring global presence, accessible to a wider audience than ever before. In the present moment, chess endures as a living tradition, a game whose foundation remains steadfast, even as it is practiced by countless individuals around the world. The rules that govern play are not subject to the whims of passing fashion. They are globally standardized and upheld by international governing bodies. This continuity forms the backbone of chess's ceremonial and formal aspects, ensuring that a game played on one continent is fundamentally the same as one played on another. The basic movement of the chess pieces, set down in the late 15th century, persists unchanged, linking today's players with generations past. The familiar Staunton-style chess set, with its distinctively shaped pieces, stands as the universal standard for tournament play. Its design, a fixture since the 19th century, is instantly recognizable, and its presence at formal events signals a respect for tradition that is shared across borders. Algebraic notation, now the standard method for recording chess games worldwide, further reinforces this sense of unity. Players, commentators, and enthusiasts use the same language to describe the action on the board, whether they are annotating a grandmaster's move or analyzing a casual game at a local club. The ritual of recording moves, either by hand or through digital means, is a visible link between the present and the long history of chess. Over-the-board play, with its tangible chess pieces and physical presence, continues in clubs, schools, and tournaments. These gatherings, whether in modest community centers or grand halls, are marked by familiar routines: the handshake before the first move, the careful arrangement of pieces, and the quiet concentration that settles over the board. These customs echo the ceremonies of past generations, maintaining a thread of continuity that ties together players from different backgrounds and eras. Time controls, classical, rapid, and blitz, are all formally recognized forms of the game, each with its own traditions and expectations. The measured pace of classical chess, with its long hours and deep thought, stands alongside the urgency and excitement of rapid and blitz play, where decisions must be made in seconds. Each form has its own rituals, yet all are governed by the same underlying rules and respect for the game's heritage. In the present, chess organizations and institutions actively promote these traditional forms. Clubs, federations, and tournament organizers uphold established standards, ensuring that the game's ceremonial aspects are preserved even as new players enter the fold. Within contemporary chess culture, references to historical figures and events are ever present. Players and commentators draw inspiration from the games of past masters, analyzing their moves and strategies with reverence. The achievements of legendary players, the iconic matches that have shaped the course of chess history, and the enduring beauty of classic games are all invoked in present-day discussions. This ongoing dialogue between past and present is a defining feature of chess as it is practiced today. Players and organizers reflect on the enduring aspects of chess, often noting how the game's traditions provide a sense of stability and belonging. The language of respect, discipline, and continuity is woven into the commentary that surrounds contemporary chess, underscoring the game's role as a living tradition. Chess's ongoing evolution has not diminished its ceremonial core. The rituals and customs of play, the adherence to established standards, and the reverence for the game's heritage all testify to its enduring presence. In the present, chess is not merely a pastime, but a tradition, one that is visible in the formalities of competition, the familiar shapes of the pieces, and the shared language of notation. This unbroken chain of practice and respect grounds the game in the present, even as it looks back to its origins. Beyond its traditional aspects, chess serves as a powerful medium for learning and intellectual development in the present. Across multiple countries, chess is used as an instructional tool in educational programs that reach students of all ages. The appeal of chess as a teaching aid lies in its ability to cultivate skills that extend far beyond the 64 squares of the board. Instruction in chess emphasizes planning, calculation, pattern recognition, and decision-making, abilities that are valuable not only in the game itself, but in a wide range of academic and real-world contexts. Organized chess instruction exists for children and adults at every level, from beginners taking their first steps to advanced players seeking to refine their mastery. In schools, after-school clubs, and community centers, structured lessons introduce students to the fundamentals of chess. These programs often focus on the development of critical thinking and problem-solving skills, encouraging learners to anticipate consequences, weigh alternatives, and adapt to changing circumstances. The logic and discipline required to play chess well are recognized as transferable skills, and educators frequently highlight the game's potential to enhance cognitive development. Instructional materials are widely available in both print and digital formats. Books and periodicals offer annotated games, puzzles, and theoretical discussions, catering to a diverse audience of learners. Digital resources, including interactive tutorials, video lectures, and training apps, make chess education accessible to a global community. The proliferation of these materials reflects the growing recognition of chess as a valuable educational resource. Chess engines, computer programs capable of analyzing positions and suggesting moves, are now commonly used in training and study. These tools provide players with immediate feedback, enabling them to identify mistakes, explore alternative lines of play, and deepen their understanding of strategy and tactics. The integration of technology into chess education represents a significant development, expanding the range of instructional possibilities while maintaining the game's intellectual rigor. Chess coaching and study systems have become an established feature of the contemporary chess landscape. Coaches, many of whom are experienced players themselves, guide students through the complexities of the game, offering personalized instruction and tailored training plans. Study groups and online communities provide additional opportunities for collaborative learning, allowing players to share insights, solve puzzles together, and discuss key concepts. These organized efforts exist both within and outside formal competitive structures, reflecting the widespread appeal of chess as a tool for personal growth. The educational benefits of chess are the subject of ongoing research and commentary in contemporary sources. Studies frequently highlight the positive impact of chess instruction on memory, concentration, and logical reasoning. Teachers and advocates often speak to the transformative effect of the game, recounting stories of students who have gained confidence, perseverance, and a sense of achievement through their engagement with chess. The present-day emphasis on learning is not limited to formal education. Many adults turn to chess as a means of maintaining mental sharpness, embracing the game as a lifelong pursuit of knowledge and improvement. In classrooms, homes, and online forums, the process of learning chess is marked by exploration and discovery. Players encounter new challenges, devise creative solutions, and experience the satisfaction that comes from mastering a difficult concept or executing a well-planned strategy. The journey of learning is ongoing, and chess offers an inexhaustible supply of new positions, ideas, and possibilities. In this way, the game serves as both teacher and companion, guiding players through the complexities of reasoning and decision-making. The role of chess as a vehicle for learning and development is thus firmly established in the present. Through its structured instruction, accessible materials, and recognized cognitive benefits, chess continues to enrich the lives of those who engage with it. The game's educational value is celebrated by teachers, coaches, and students alike, and its influence extends far beyond the confines of the chessboard. Chess's significance in the present is not limited to tradition or education alone. It also functions as a lasting companion for individuals and communities, offering comfort, stability, and continuity in a rapidly changing world. The game is played recreationally by millions of people worldwide, bridging geographic, cultural, and generational divides. In homes, parks, cafes, and online platforms, chess brings together players of all ages and backgrounds, fostering a sense of connection and belonging. Participation in chess takes many forms. Some engage in casual games with friends or family members, savoring the familiar rhythms of play and the pleasure of shared experience. Others join organized competitions, testing their skills against a wider circle of opponents. Still others pursue informal study, immersing themselves in puzzles, annotated games, and theoretical explorations. This diversity of engagement reflects the game's adaptability and enduring appeal. Chess communities thrive in both physical locations and virtual spaces. Local clubs provide opportunities for face-to-face interaction, where players can exchange ideas, challenge one another, and celebrate shared achievements. Online platforms connect enthusiasts across continents, enabling real-time play, discussion, and collaboration. These communities, whether rooted in a particular place or dispersed across the globe, offer support and encouragement to their members. The sense of continuity that arises from participation in these groups is a testament to chess's capacity to create lasting bonds. For many, chess is a lifelong pursuit. Players often return to the game at different stages of their lives, finding in it a source of renewal and challenge. The ability to engage with chess intermittently, picking up where one left off after weeks, months, or even years, is a unique feature of the game. Its rules and structures remain constant, providing a stable foundation even as the circumstances of life change. This constancy makes chess a reliable companion, one that is always available for study, reflection, or play. Personal accounts frequently highlight the significance of chess as a source of comfort and meaning. Individuals describe how the game has provided solace during difficult times, offered a means of escape from stress, or served as a focus for concentration and mindfulness. The rituals of play, the arrangement of pieces, the quiet contemplation of the board become a form of meditation, allowing players to center themselves and find clarity amid distraction. For some, chess is a link to family traditions, a way to connect with parents, siblings, or children through a shared activity that spans generations. The enduring presence of chess is also evident in its role as a bridge between cultures. The game's universal rules and recognizable symbols enable communication and understanding across linguistic and cultural barriers. In international competitions, players from diverse backgrounds come together in a spirit of mutual respect and friendly rivalry. The shared language of chess, its notation, strategies, and etiquette facilitates connection and exchange, fostering a sense of global community. As a constant in the lives of individuals and groups, chess continues to evolve while maintaining its essential character. Its structures and rituals provide stability, its educational value enriches minds, and its role as a companion offers comfort and connection. In the present day, chess stands as a testament to the enduring power of tradition, the ongoing pursuit of learning, and the deep human need for continuity and belonging. The ongoing presence of chess in the present is thus established through its visible traditions, its recognized educational value, and its enduring role as a companion through time. The game persists as a living practice, connecting people across generations and cultures, and providing meaning and structure in a changing world. Through its ceremonies, its lessons, and its communities, chess remains a constant, an ever-evolving game that never stops changing, yet never loses its essential identity.